God, Baruch Hashem.
Who he was, and after, he had, he died at the age of 27 in a boating accident.
Oh yeah, when he was trying to get there, he was bombed by Germans. Crazy.
Right. Well, boating accident. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So anyway, I guess he sent revisions to his mother, saying in the event that I pass on. But I guess she didn't get the revision, so I don't know. So I guess this,
or maybe she didn't want to give it away. Who knows? That would be something really.
Yeah, well, that's true. Very, very true. Maybe that's, yeah, absolutely. So I guess this book is not with his revisions. I mean, this was his first draft in a sense.
Right.
It was bizarre. I thought that was. I mean, it was well written though, and like you said.
Yeah.
But
it feel like a Holocaust story. It didn't feel like I knew that it was a Holocaust story, but you don't feel that it's a Holocaust story because they don't go to the concentration camp. You see from a different angle, of trying to get out, and then he ends up escaping Otto. But what ends up happening is that there is these people, I think he went to, where was it? I forgot which country he escaped to.
He didn't escape. I mean, that's not in my book.
Right. So he tries to escape.
He tried. It was Belgium.
Yeah, Belgium, exactly. He tries to escape.
Yeah, I mean, he got caught and sent back.
And he tries to bribe them, and they didn't care. I couldn't believe it. I'm I don't think that's too realistic, though. I don't think it was too realistic. I mean, come on, they're gonna for sure take it.
We're gonna give them each 20,000.
Yeah, right. Of course they would take it, but I think that the whole time, I feel like we can relate to him. He's going on the train and he's so nervous and looking over his shoulder. And he used to be this really easygoing businessman. He knew what he was doing, and then he's just running around. And it's so sad because.
I know he's in major despair. Anyway, go ahead.
It's good.
I mean, I see and feel the major despair, and how he doesn't care. And it's wow,
Right.
Even to the point where he was just well, I guess I'll kill myself. You know what I mean?
And I thought that was such an important point because, how many people could have went that route in the Holocaust and didn't? But they knew that any day that's going to happen anyway. But they chose not to. And I thought that was something, it was kind of the opposite really of Masada, where they knew anyway what was going to happen and they decided to each one take the other's life. And but this situation, it was nope, we're going to wait it out to the end and try the best we can. So, and I think it was also really actually, I'm not sure if it was so realistic. I was thinking this myself. The brother-in-law of the guy, so his wife was not Jewish, which I felt that was unrealistic for those times. Because most Jewish people were not allowed to marry non-Jews. They were kind of stuck in the ghettos. They were second-class citizens. No one was going to marry them. And in fact, his actual wife was Jewish. So, I mean, the author. But he talks about marrying this non-Jewish woman, and her brother refused to have him anywhere near them. And I thought that was I wasn't sure if that was so realistic also, because I felt that, maybe they would just sneak him in because he was family. He was married to this woman for 23 years. So it was I don't know if that was so realistic.
Yeah, but I actually thought, I thought the actual marriage was not as,
yeah.
Well, I thought possibly that wasn't as realistic, but I mean, unfortunately, the brother, or the brother-in-law, the wife's brother, I mean, I could, no offense, I feel bad, but I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that.
I actually wrote down some notes on it that I thought was interesting. It talks about the idea of one's identity, how they try to ruin their identity. They would slowly undress them at first, then kill them. And he writes, so our clothing won't get bloodied and our banknotes damaged. These days, murder is performed economically. And I thought that was something that was really, that no one even talks about, but it was, just something so terrible and true. How they would just, it was all about making enough money. So the idea of what his non-Jewish wife said to the Findler, and he said that it's Jewish blood that brings the German people together, and she was really like horrified by that. So that's something again where I feel like that's very realistic. Unfortunately, people can take something and they can like turn it around so it's an excuse to, you know, so I felt that that was pretty terrible, but more true. And at the coffee place, oh, here, Doris wants to come in. At the coffee place, it talks about, he goes, "Excuse me, sir, but is there something going on in town today?" And then Mr. Silberman says, "Oh, what's supposed to be going on?" As if he understands that the waiter does not yet know that all of the Jews are being dragged out, and the discussion, and then we'll get to the quote soon. I thought it was something very interesting because in Germany, it was known back then as a very cultured place. That was the whole idea of Germany, where, you know, one of the things that attracted the Jewish people to the Germans by living in Germany in those times, before obviously the Holocaust, was that they were so cultured and they were so, you know, there's certain ways of how they would speak with each other, and
they were refined.
They were very refined. And even this lady, she writes about this woman, and she's waiting, I think it was his sister, Otto's sister, and she's waiting for her husband to return. And she's like, "I can't leave my apartment." Why? Because he's going to come back. They know that he's in his 60s. They know that it's difficult. Already we see the mentality back then, that they were so caring to even the elderly, and that a woman would make sure her husband has food because he's starving. So it's just something that, you know, we don't see the before the war. We don't see really the attitude of what really happened. We only just see, you know, when Hitler came to power and then what happened and the Holocaust, but we don't really see before the war. And I think that that was a really interesting point that he brings, that it was so cultured.
Yeah, the only thing, I remember why you were talking about the brother-in-law, or the brother of the wife, Alfreda.
Yeah.
You know, but the only reason I felt that, you know, potentially that could have been more accurate is, what if nobody approved of this marriage? Like, we don't know how the couple felt initially about the marriage.
I think it would have made much more sense. It would have been, especially for those times.
But he was very, you know, obviously he had his company, he did very well. You know what I mean? He was a wealthy man, like you said.
Right.
You know, even though Becker, I guess Becker's name was on the, you know, he didn't have his particular name, you know, on the company, but it was his company.
Right.
You know, it was Becker's, you know, salvage or whatever.
He also talks about his friend Becker, and I again don't know if that's so realistic. We're talking about things are realistic or not, and I'm thinking that Becker, knowing this guy for so many years, so fast, because like we go to the previous chapter, and he's crying about how much he loves Otto, and then the next chapter he's like already was planning to stab him in the back. I didn't know how realistic that was. Yes, we know that during the times of the Holocaust, that there's plenty of people that backstabbed the Jews, but I don't know how realistic that was, because it seems that it was.
Well, I think that people were scared. You know what I mean? They were scared. I mean, they didn't want to, you know, you didn't want to be a quote-unquote Jew lover or whatever. I mean, that would put them at risk. So I think a lot of people conformed, you know, just to be safe. You know what I mean?
Right.
For their own livelihood.
But he went to an extra level. He like took all his money. It was a whole thing. So I feel like for him that took a lot of.
It was an opportunity to take advantage of him.
Right.
Well, that's true.
But as a friend for so many years, I don't know.
But he was also subordinate, you know. So here's a chance to make one up on the boss.
Right.
You know.
So I guess before we get to the quotes, Peter Graff wrote the afterword, and he is this. I think he wrote books himself, but he helped to rediscover The Passenger. So it kind of was stuck in some library, and then he brings it back to life, which I thought was pretty incredible. So the whole idea of Otto as his character who was so petrified to die. But when you get to know the author, and he talks about, he gives, like Shira was saying, he gives his mother hopefully the last of the revisions, and he rather the book get out than himself get out. So I think that was the difference between the author and the person he's writing about. Like he rather his work get out there. So I thought that was an interesting point. And eventually this Peter Graff rediscovers his book, and it becomes so popular. In fact, it was translated into 19 languages. So it was a very, very famous book, which I think is pretty incredible because, I thought it was pretty incredible. So anyone want to share anything else before we go to the quotes?
I thought it was a good insight into the time period. You know, there are a lot of Holocaust books out there, but this one, let you kind of in the feel thing, so to speak.
Right. Yeah, I felt it was really an eye-opener to the people of Germany when they would call them very cultured. It was, you kind of felt that you understood that they really were like this. But then, there's a huge change. And so everyone was so nice and sweet, and people couldn't really imagine that life would be so brutal and be so difficult.
So I can see that happening here too.
God forbid.
In the same way.
I hope not. It gets me nervous sometimes.
A lot has happened since COVID. People, they say that, there's a lot more road rage. Unfortunately, God forbid, but, that people are just, a lot of people were more short-fused, you know what I mean, these days, with each other.
With understanding, what each other has gone through rather than having no patience. But we'll see what happens. All right, so Devorah, you want to read the introduction and the quote?
Okay, not a shred of humanity or shame left in this wide country, except the scant, totally insignificant gestures. Everyone, even people once thought you were friends and partners, will fleece you or rat on you, or both. And if you call them out as a barefaced rogues they are, they'll only reply with one infallible curse: Jew. So social pressure, especially stemming from a mob mentality, can turn otherwise decent people into what they themselves abhor. I think that's true. No matter how much wisdom or goodwill is invested in developing societal norms or morals, behavioral standards emanating from human intellect are by definition limited and at least possibly corruptible. The only moral code that is infinite and infallible is God's law, which applies to all of humanity at any time in history or place in the world.
Sheila, do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, should we read also the introduction up here?
Oh yes, you can definitely.
So the passenger by Ulrich Alexander Boschwitz. Berlin, November 1938, Jewish shops have been ransacked and looted, synagogues destroyed. As stormtroopers pound on his door, Otto Silbermann, a respected businessman who fought for Germany in the Great War, is forced to sneak out the back of his own home. Turned away from establishments he had long patronized, and fearful of being exposed as a Jew despite his Aryan looks, he boards a train. And then another, and another, until his flight becomes a frantic odyssey across Germany as he searches for information, then for help, and finally for escape. His travels bring him face to face with waiters and conductors, officials and fellow outcasts, seductive women, and vicious thieves, a few of whom disapprove of the regime, while the rest embrace it wholeheartedly. Claims his existence as it was just days before, Silberman refuses to believe and bereft of family, friends, and fortune. As his world collapses around him, he is forced to concede that his nightmare is all too real. So that, I thought that was really good, synopsis of what was going on in the book. And so the quote that we're looking at is, while his looks succeeded in deceiving others, over time he begins to see he may simply be deceiving himself. And thematic analysis, according to the passenger, a person can forget his true identity if he hides it from the world for long enough. From the Torah perspective, essential identity is of utmost importance for mental stability, emotional balance, and spiritual fulfillment. One must be true to who they really are, regardless of incurred difficulties, because this is the very purpose of one's existence. And yeah, I think that's very true, that, you really got to have a good solid anchor. And you can do that, through Hashem and Torah. People were, it seemed like the societal pressure, they just flipped in an instant, like you said, they were, he was very well respected as a good businessman, and then the next thing you know, it just switched.
Right.
And he didn't have anything. He started losing everything very quickly and very, in a sense, a brutal manner. He goes
Right.
back to his apartment and it's ransacked and all that, and,
Right, yeah.
he finds the swastika on the floor and,
Yeah.
all that.
I think that's really exemplified in the time that he goes to the police station and wants to make a report.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I was actually having
Beforehand,
comedy
the
to
report
it.
would have been taken and said, oh my goodness, people, stole from you. But now it's like they don't even recognize that he exists.
Yeah.
Right. He doesn't matter.
Right.
You know what I mean? He doesn't matter, and it's really sad.
He's a non-person. What's going on to him has no importance whatsoever. And even the fact that he's there, they're tolerating him and kind of displaying that, we're being gracious to tolerate that you're even standing here.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they even said that, when he took a seat, the inspector took it as an insult.
Mm-hmm.
When he sat down, it's like, okay. You know what I mean? It's just really, it's pretty stark. That's really,
Yeah, I thought it was kind of funny how he didn't want to leave because he goes, why didn't you report it earlier? He wanted to go to the police station. This is what they normally did. So I felt it was there's like this comical part to it, even through all the craziness and how sad it was. There was like this hidden comedy, which I thought it gave it like a very real, realistic edge to it. So that was funny. Okay.
In a sense, too, it illustrates his need or desire to be seen still as human. This is important, but, for everyone else in the world, it's not.
Right. For those times, yeah. Okay, so the next one is Boschwitz's Jewish father who had converted to Christianity and married to a Protestant woman. So the author's perspective, a person can be ethnically or culturally Jewish while choosing to leave the faith, even by converting to another religion. The Torah perspective, when a Jew tries to be a citizen of the world by comprehensively integrating into secular society, it is almost certain that his Jewish identity will not only be superseded by other factors, but will in fact be erased in future generations.
Was that his, so that the Protestant woman, that was not his real mother, was it? Because otherwise he wouldn't be Jewish.
It's a good point.
Was this his, second wife or something, or? We don't know, do we?
Right. Actually, it might have been his second wife. Actually, I don't remember. That's a really great point.
Yeah, because, I don't think they really mentioned, I really think that Otto Silberman was Jewish.
Wow. Oh my gosh, sure, that's brilliant. So,
No, but I'm serious.
so I found a
just
place.
need to know.
In the preface, it says that he was born to an affluent and secularized family. Boschwitz was his Jewish father who had converted to Christianity and married a Protestant woman. Died just weeks before the birth of his son. Wow. So he
And that was
technically,
before the birth of his son. What did it say?
yeah, before the birth of his son.
Well, then he wasn't Jewish.
Right.
Yeah, but the question is, did the Nazis see him?
No, the Nazis would
Yes, they did.
absolutely look at him like he was Jewish because the father was Jewish. Yeah. So that is a really great point. Wow. It blows you away.
Okay, so, yeah, I guess, did they go several generations back or something?
Yeah, they went in all directions, and I think even if you were a fourth Jewish, so meaning, let's say it was like a fourth, I don't know, like how how would it be? But I think up to a fourth
Right.
Jewish, even if you were so not Jewish, they still will consider you Jewish, and they would kill you. Which
Oh,
is,
wow.
I can't even believe it. That's a
Okay.
brilliant point. I never realized that, like, he himself really was not Jewish, but he had to still run for his life. Wow, that blows you away.
Yeah, that's why he has the Aryan looks potentially.
Right, from his mother. Wow. Yeah.
Is there really like a quote unquote Jewish look? No.
Yeah, that's
but-
actually a great point because, you know, if you look at Jewish people that come from Sephardic Jews, they're going to look very different than Ashkenazi Jews. So, and they're as Jewish as we are. So,
Right, and you know what? I mean, this is what it, I mean, they accentuated it, so we still talk about it like that. Do you look Jewish? I mean,
right.
yeah, it's almost
Right,
like,
right.
I feel like I'm kind of giving them, you know, like you know,
Yeah.
I'm like agreeing with them in a sense. You know what I mean? When I don't agree with them, you know what I
Right,
mean?
right, yeah.
Kind of like giving them a positive gesture when I don't want to.
Devorah, you want to read the next one?
There's a Jewish head on his shoulders. Ha ha, he'll manage all Jews. Okay, Jews were seen not only as intelligent and intellectual, but cunning and subversive. I'll comment on that in just a second. While education and intelligence, especially in Torah, are highly valued, honest behavior is just as critical. In fact, many laws concerning interpersonal endeavors aim to avoid just the appearance of impropriety.
This one?
Yeah, so it's Jewish blood that's bringing the German people together. And I fail to see why my friend Silverman, of all people, should wind up as glue. Running for your life, on the other hand, that I understand completely. So that's a quote, and according to the book, the Germans considered Jews, even those that had been born and lived their entire lives alongside them in Germany, as second-class citizens, if not less than human, allowing themselves to justify almost any atrocity that was being perpetrated on them. According to the Torah, the world was created with two distinct roles for humanity, bringing spirituality down into the physical and elevating the material to become a vehicle for the spiritual. The former mission was given to the Jewish people, while the latter was given to non-Jews. Despite the inherent need to work together, there always was and always will be a distinction between the Jewish people and all other nations of the world. And because of the unique role Jews play in fulfilling God's vision of a perfect world, other peoples may decline to anti-Semitism in certain circumstances.
Right. Okay, 10 minutes ago it was my house that was at stake, my property. Now it's my neck. Everything's happening so quickly. They have declared war on me personally. That's what it is. War has just been declared on me once and for all. And right now I'm completely on my own in enemy territory. Okay, author perspective. Nothing could save the Jews in Germany. Even someone with tremendous wealth, influence, connections, and esteem was almost immediately excommunicated from all former social spheres and unceremoniously characterized as just another Jew. The Torah perspective. One of the pitfalls of success is the erroneous perception that one's own abilities are the cause of his achievements. In fact, if one's gains are his own doing, they are inherently limited. The same is true of leading a secular lifestyle in order to get ahead in secular society. And I think that was so sad with what happened because also people were just so shocked, you know, that this was really happening. You know, in some ways I think about Ukraine and everything going on there, but there was just no comparison because they kind of knew for a while that Russia might invade. But here it's like they didn't see it coming. They thought, I'm a German, like you see in the book again. Otto keeps saying, I'm a German, I'm a German, and I'm he first, and then he's a Jew. And he couldn't believe this. So that's something that is just very sad. And I hope it doesn't happen in this country. Because you know how I feel, and I think everyone feels, like I'm an American. I'm a Jewish American. We don't, I think that's how we look at ourselves. So it would be terrible. Devorah, you want to read the next one?
Please believe me, I simply can't bear to see a man like you become a miserable lowlife and blackmailer. There still have to be people who maintain their decency and humanity no matter what opportunities might come their way. Who don't turn into swine just because they see a puddle that they might wallow in. One would expect a close friend or associate to care more about the relationship than personal gain, especially in an underhanded situation. Unfortunately, those that are closest to us and with whom we have the deepest relationships might devastatingly choose themselves over the relationship. The most important principle to remember is that everything happens by divine providence, and that it's our responsibility to behave properly regardless of what others do.
Quote is, nothing left, absolutely nothing, Silverman said again out loud. I'll go get arrested, he thought. I'll go back to the police station. Murdered me, so it ought to bury me as well. According to the book, when everything one has built in life and upon which personal status and success was based is suddenly and unfairly taken away, there doesn't seem to be a reason to continue living. According to the Torah perspective, when one realizes that everything comes from and happens because of God, even severe and massive loss will not shake the conviction that if one is alive, God decided that the world he wants to create is incomplete without one's service.
Wow.
So, I think it's a really good point that everything comes from God and from Hashem, and you can be doing phenomenally well, and then in another moment, like, lose everything. There's got to be something to hold on to, some anchor that's
Right.
It depends on what's your anchor in a sense, what's holding you.
Interesting book written by Viktor Frankl.
Yes.
Called The Search for Meaning.
Yes.
And I wrote a paper on it years ago when I was taking a psychology class. I had to use it and compare it to another book. I think it was called The Ring, about a man who was in concentration camp and how he survived by giving meaning to this ring that he found, which is very short about what the story was actually about.
Wow,
but
that sounds so cool.
Viktor Frankl said that the difference between life and death is because this man had meaning in his life. Even though she was in an absolutely horrible situation, he found a meaning. Whereas this character, Silverman, sees everything that he has put his identity into, that he feels he no longer has an identity and therefore has no reason to exist.
Right, and he's lost, and he just goes from train to train to train.
Right.
He just travels all over the place because that's indicative of how he feels. That's, completely,
Yeah. Wow.
There's no purpose, there's no end goal. He doesn't even know where he's going. He just buys tickets.
Right. Until he finally can't buy tickets anymore because he's run out of money.
Right. And
He doesn't know what to do because he has no other experience in his life except for his materialism.
Right.
Right.
And so now he doesn't know what to do.
Right. And it just shows you also a lot of these Holocaust survivors or people that went through the Holocaust, they never really had that as an option. Because maybe it's like what she was saying about the anchor. And I think that's just really incredible. Like, I would never want to be faced with those decisions. And to realize how many Jewish people that wasn't even an option. Like suicide wasn't an option. That's not, they're gonna prove their point and live and try to make it and try to, you know, be the example so that people to know we're never gonna let this happen again. That's just, you know, I mean, when I was growing up, it seemed like almost every day I felt like a Holocaust survivor was always coming to our school. You know, how many times, and they would just share us the stories and what they went through and how they had to survive and how they keep coming to different places so that they can share their story. So it's very, yeah. So there definitely wasn't, I guess, a material, you know, a physical aspect to their life. It was more about much deeper, yeah. But it was a great book. I really liked it.